So, moving on. Dungeon 3 is another dungeon I don't really feel too threatened by, so what we're going to do is we're just going to barrel our way to Dungeon 3 and just tear our way through that dungeon. But as you can see, we're walking out of Dungeon 2 with 4 keys in hand, so we're more than prepared for Dungeon 3. And on top of that, we're going to be kind of abusing bombs in that dungeon as well, blowing holes in the walls to navigate around, to quickly get from point A to point B, to quickly take care of Dungeon 3 as well. And we don't have to worry about one of my least favorite enemies just yet, but that's coming up very quickly. So Dungeon 3 is just over where we got that second 100 rupee in Moblin, and it's also just, say, 2 or 3 screens away from Dungeon 7, which I find is a little bit close for 2 dungeons to be so close together. But then again, the world map of Zelda 1 isn't very big. Regardless of what that gray blob on the top left corner tells you, yeah, that blob on the top left corner is the map. So, yeah, this game can be very, very cryptic if you don't have a guide on hand. So again, we're not going to really be purchasing arrows just yet, as arrows aren't really going to be useful until Dungeon 4. So we're going to be picking up some arrows here very shortly. It'll be on our to-do list immediately after clearing out Dungeon 3. So Dungeon 3 is interesting, as Link's palette really changes. It's a very, very drastic shift. Like, it's noticeable. So these are Zols. They are very special in certain cases. They're like another enemy we're going to be encountering later called the Vire. They will split into smaller portions if you don't kill them in one hit. Zols have a whole whopping total of 1 HP, but you need to kill them with a max amount of 2 in order to make sure they don't split. Because if you deal 1 HP, they will split off into two gels. So these are Dark Nuts. They are one of the most vicious enemies in the game, even though they're just kind of walking around in circles here and just kind of wandering. So it doesn't seem like they do a whole lot of damage, but their HP count is 4, and the blue one, which we're going to be encountering later, is a whopping 8 damage, so is a whopping 8 HP. So the blue Dark Nut does a total of 4 damage, while the red one does 2. So you're gonna wanna just be careful when dealing with Dark Nuts. So if you can, I would highly suggest fighting them from a distance, so that way you're not dealing with Dark Nuts too terribly. If you don't have the white sword, or even better yet, the magical sword, which we need... Ouch, ouch. Which we need more hearts to collect, I would suggest fighting them from doorways. So this is the raft. This is what we're going to be using to gain access to Dungeon 4. And Dungeon 4 is where we're going to start needing arrows, as the boss of that dungeon is Goma. At least I think Dungeon 4's boss is Goma. Let me just check my notes here really quick. No, Dungeon 6 is Goma, I believe. I think? Not sure. Bubbles in this particular room. So bubbles are unkillable. But the problem with bubbles is that if they make contact with you, they will put a jinx on you, making it so you cannot use your sword. Darn. So I would be very cautious about about bubbles. Bubbles are the glowing disco head things. So we're going to pick up another key. I believe we're going to be able to walk out of this dungeon with maybe 5 keys in hand. So from this room, we are just going to collect our map. And I know that looks really bad, but trust me, it is called the manji. It is a symbol of good luck in certain cultures like Buddhism. So we're going to let these spike traps go by, blow a hole in the wall, and come face to face with Dungeon 3's boss, Manhandla. One good bomb in the center can take out all 4 heads, but Manhandla's not too much problems. Manhandla is a boss that has 16 HP, 4 HP per head, and upon contact or fireball damage is 2 damage, so just be kind of cautious when fighting Manhandla. So, now that we're done Dungeon 3, the first thing I'm going to suggest doing at this point is picking up the arrows. Now that we have the spending cash to fund our arrow usage, as well as having the raft, what we can do is we can head back all the way to the east coast, and pick ourselves up another heart container. However, I wouldn't suggest doing that quite yet. I'd actually suggest waiting until you clear out Dungeon 4, because Dungeon 4 is where we pick up the step ladder. And the step ladder, because there are two heart containers right next to each other, one just to the north of the other one, I would suggest just waiting until you have the step ladder before picking those up, as they're going to be our last... this is not the arrows. You know what? We have to head back that way anyway, so let us go grab one of the heart containers now. So the quickest way we can do that is by heading to the starting map, which is just down here. The starting area is directly to our west, but we don't have to head to the starting area. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to head to the east, taking out a whole bunch of enemies along the way to try to pick up as many rupees as we can, so we can afford picking up the bait for Dungeon 7. And again, we're also going to be encountering some levers, which is going to be a good way on how we're going to fund our spending habits. Actually, that round of levers wasn't that good of drops for money. Neither was that. 3 rupees? 3 rupees? That's not very good. There is a secret on this screen somewhere. I don't know where it is. I can never find it. But I believe it is just in one of the disgruntled old men that just rob you of money. And I believe the money theft is random, so just kind of try to look up a map of where all the old men are across Hyrule to avoid them as much as possible. So in this cave, we can find ourselves arrows. Now, if you notice the shopkeep, his outfit changes with ours. Link is the fashion setter across Hyrule. And that is going to also be true for Zelda and the rest of the shopkeeps and whatnot when we pick up the red ring. Ah, we can't get that one yet. Right. Dungeon 4. Right, we gotta do Dungeon 4 before getting that one. That is the one we need the stepladder for. The one directly to our north, this one is where we can use the raft to get ourselves another heart container. It is just in this cave here. So again, don't pick up the red medicine, as we can just buy that whenever. So instead, get the heart container, and when we finish Dungeon 4, we'll be able to afford ourselves the magical sword. The magical sword is just off in the graveyard, but we need 12 hearts in order to get it. Okay, so we're back on the starting screen here. So we're just going to make our way over to Dungeon 4 now, which isn't too terribly far away, I don't feel. as Dungeon 4 is just a couple screens to the left, and then up like 2 screens, so we're not very far away from where we encountered Dungeon 4. So taking the raft point, we can easily make our way to Dungeon 4. So Dungeon 4, this is, I believe, where we start encountering at least the darkened rooms, as well as, I believe, Vires, as well as the like-likes. So I want to be picking up as many keys as possible, because I don't want to really be too short on keys before getting to Dungeon 8. Dungeon 8 is where we're going to be encountering the magical key, which is actually called the Lion Key in the original translation. So, like the Zols, in order to kill a Vire proper, you have to do 1 plus its total HP. The HP of a Vire is 2. You have to do at least 3 HP in order to kill a Vire proper. Now, when in a dark room, you're going to just equip your candle and throw a fireball. Now, if you really want to kill a Vire, you can use a bomb. I wouldn't suggest it, as like I said, bombs do 4 damage. And bombs are kinda limited until you find the bomb expansions. And finding bomb expansions is kinda tricky, as they're hidden within dungeons. So, now you see we're at an impasse. We can't cross the water. So that means we have to find ourselves the stepladder. Now the stepladder, because it is mandatory to beat this dungeon, the stepladder can be found in this dungeon itself. So, in order to get to the stepladder, we have to kill all the Vires, including all of their keys they split off into. Now, you don't have to worry about the different colored keys, as the keys don't really have much in terms of differences. So, the pancake enemies here, those are one of the nastiest enemies in the game. Those are like-likes. So if a like-like catches you, they will eat your shield, and that is 90 rupees I don't want to spend again, because farming rupees in this game is a hassle, because the max rupee for 1 rupee you can pick up is 5. So there is a trick you can use if you so wish. If you really want to just take care of the like-likes without having to deal with them. If you kill an enemy, leave the room, and then re-enter, one of the enemies will be different. So that is another glitch you can use in order to alleviate some of the stress of this game. So I believe this is a room that doesn't drop anything. I don't recall just off the top of my head. Just let me kill the Vires here, if I can catch this keys. Yeah, nothing. I believe this room up here holds... Ah! Manhandla. Okay. So, I'm going to just give it 1 failed bomb. Now, you don't have to fight this Manhandla. You can bomb to the east, come into a room with a whole bunch of rupees, and by a whole bunch I mean 10, and then bomb to the north. And you can completely ignore that Manhandla. And it also saves you a bit of trouble. So, I do believe that the boss fight of this dungeon is is Goma. I could be wrong, but I don't feel I am. Oh no, the boss fight of this dungeon isn't Goma. Goma isn't until Dungeon 6. The boss of this dungeon is a familiar face Tears of the Kingdom fans will recognize instantly. The boss of Dungeon 4 is the Gleeok. Now, Gleeok looks a little different as well. And he's a whole lot less scary, because he doesn't fly and isn't elemental. And he goes down way easier than the Tears of the Kingdom Gleeoks do. Especially if it's your first time fighting them, they can be very scary. But when you kill a head, the Gleeok head will split off and start doing its own thing. Each Gleeok has 5 HP per head. So that was a 2-headed Gleeok, it has 10 HP. And its fireballs and body do 2 damage. So be careful with Gleeok.